Did you know we can experience as many as 60,000 different thoughts in a day, but only a mere 10% of them will actually be new thoughts? This means our thoughts are largely variations on a theme of thoughts that we've had before. And the chances are, most of the time we won't even notice this to be the case. As we've seen in previous videos, most of what we think and many of the reactions we have to the things we experience occur unconsciously on autopilot anyway. Given the awesome complexity of our brain, this is simply the way our mind needs to function. But as we start to train our brain and begin applying mindfulness practices to our life, we increasingly become aware of how automatic our thoughts and actions can be. And we realize just how busy our mind usually is. It seems most of the time this automaticity doesn't affect us too adversely. Accepting that is, when recurring thoughts are of a sticky sort that repeatedly trigger within us strong emotions or compulsions. And when this happens, very real problems can arise. Problems that might lead to our suffering in one way or another. In an earlier video entitled The Counterintuitive Approach, we considered how some such unconscious thought patterns can support unhelpful circular thoughts, and even cause us to spiral emotionally. We particularly focused on those patterns characterized by rumination, worry, and catastrophizing. And we saw how, in some more severe cases, they might lead to such common mental health conditions as low mood, depression, and anxiety. Then in our most recent video, The Dictator Within, we looked at the critical voice each of us has in our head. Here we focused on the notion that our thoughts are not really facts, which means there's a strong argument for us doing whatever we can to become less fused with them. Interestingly, in his pivotal book, A Liberated Mind, The Essential Guide to ACT, Dr. Stephen C. Hayes elaborates on our mental experience. He suggests we feel uneasy when our thoughts contradict each other, which is actually a common occurrence. At times, we may well be aware that we really are of two minds. For example, we might be torn between more than one spiritual tradition, opposing political outlooks, or even just different ways of managing our calendar. This potential inner conflict might even go along the lines of, I love my partner, but really hate living with him or her. But suppose we can step back and observe what's going on in us without judgment, but with a sense of kindness, curiosity, and gentle amusement. Only then can we remove the need we feel we have to take sides or choose a victor. Hayes tells us that when our thoughts don't readily fit together in a way we might like them to, we're likely to experience a sense of vulnerability. He believes that each of us has an unconscious inner yearning to create coherence and understanding out of the cacophony in our minds. And he suggests it is this yearning that powers our critical inner voice. It is also this yearning that drives our doing mode of mind, which we spoke about in the 3 modes of mind video, and fuels our compulsive need to problem solve. Some people respond to the sense of unease they experience by imposing a false order on their thoughts and lives. They might do this, for example, by adopting a strict set of rules for themselves, whether societal, religious, or work-related. Also, sometimes their responses involve compulsions or superstitions. And it turns out, such rigid approaches only serve to channel our yearning for coherence into a narrower, more rigid mindset and way of living. Instead of adopting these approaches, Hayes advocates what he calls cognitive diffusion, which, simply put, means diffusing from our thoughts. So let's take a look at cognitive diffusion and how it works, and consider how we might go about benefiting from it. In essence, diffusing means adopting a more mindful approach that allows our thoughts to work together in a disorderly way. It has us pause and step back from them. It is the stepping back that enables us to notice what's happening without judgment, letting go of the idea that our thoughts need to be tidy and well ordered. A practice of simply accepting what's happening in the present moment can liberate us from our old rigid thinking patterns and allow us to discover new ways of approaching our difficulties and aspirations. Can I invite you to hold your hands just a couple of inches in front of your eyes? When you do this, all you really see are your hands, right? But as you move them further away from your face, your view widens. And of course you still see your hands, but now you can also see much more of what else is in the space you're in. In the same way, when we're caught up in a negative thought cycle, it's quite hard to see the bigger picture, notice our thoughts, and work out how they're affecting us. But once we pause and step back from our thoughts, we're better able to simply accept them for what they are and gently let them go. In other words, diffusing from our thoughts is about observing our thoughts rather than observing from our thoughts. We notice them without buying into them or getting caught up in the drama of them. And rather than holding on to them, we simply allow them to come and go as they naturally do. So cognitive diffusion allows us to be aware of the actual process of our thinking, which then makes us better able to observe our thoughts objectively. Instead of simply reacting to them on autopilot, as we are naturally prone to do, this process has us pause and respond consciously, which of course is far more conducive to effective problem solving and to living our life according to the values we hold dear. And we no longer even need to be right. But please don't be deluded into thinking that this is a skill that we can quickly acquire and that going forward, everything will be fine. It is a lot more likely that our mind will repeatedly try to convince us that we have solved the diffusion thing. But this probably isn't the case. So, as with brushing our teeth and as with our meditation, diffusion is something we need to practice regularly and perhaps for the rest of our life. Even after many years of practice, I will readily admit that I still often catch myself becoming entangled with my thoughts. Sometimes as often as every day. But for me, just noticing is usually enough. So my invitation to you is to remain vigilant and also to remember that your thoughts are not facts. And of course, to expect life to be different.